So you're asking yourself, how can you help? I'm going to tell you how you can help protect these wonderful species in this resource. So, SADCAT, it runs May through October. It's just 6 months. I ask you to collect 6 to 8 scales per sample, more if you're going to keep the fish. And in an effort to kind of randomize the sample that I'm getting, I would like you to try to sample every 3rd fish that you catch, whether it be kept or released, big or small. All lengths are important to us. So step 1, go out there, go fishing. You're going anyway. And then, after you catch your fish, I ask that you take total length in inches. So total length is defined as the tip of the bottom jaw when the mouth is closed to the tip of the tail. If you do any black sea bass fishing, it does not include the tail filament because that can get broken and it's not a very accurate measurement. So you take the length. Next, you'll collect the scales. So I've colored in yellow the scale sampling location for each species. It's not the same, and this does actually matter. Because if you were to take belly scales off of a striped bass, well, they're terrible. The annuli aren't very well. They're crowded. I can't really read them. The flounder, I need scales from the top of the flounder. If you get scales from underneath, they're small, and the annuli are really crowded together, and I can't make out what age they are. There are 2 preferred methods for scale removal. You could use a scalpel or your pocket knife, whatever you have, and you just scrape against the scales in the scale sampling location. Or you could use tweezers and you can pluck them out one at a time. It's a little bit slower, but sometimes can be a little bit easier, especially with the striped bass. Their scales are thick. Sometimes they're hard to take off. If you do happen to get a fish that looks sick or injured or distressed, it's up to you as to whether or not you want to sample that fish. Again, if you're going to keep it, the more scales you can give me, the better off I am. And I've heard that it works. We do this when we go bass tagging. If you have a wet, damp cloth and you put it over their face, their eyes, it calms them down ever so slightly. So that might also help. All right, so next you've got your scales, and I asked you have an envelope. And this year, in the envelope, I have provided this nice little paper insert. Yes, it's like the bane of my existence now. If you can't, it's not a big deal. If you can get the scales in between the piece of paper, it actually works out easier for me because I'll be able to just pull the insert out and take the scales off that way. Otherwise, with some of the smaller fish, the scales actually get stuck inside the envelope, and by the time I'm done getting it out, it looks like confetti and I'm cursing and swearing. But it's okay if you don't want to use them. I've heard mixed reviews so far, so we'll see what I do next year. But anyway, with the envelope, fill out your collector name, the species. Now, I can tell which species it is based on the scales, but we actually have a data entry team, and they get a little frustrated when they don't know what they're doing. Fill out your location. Now, it's just a general location. You don't have to give me your secret spot. And then the 2 most important parts are length and date. Without them, the sample is virtually useless. So just make sure you write the length and date down right away. Everything else, I can kind of figure out. So back at the office, with everything that you were so generous in collecting, I will pick through the sample and I look for the good scale. So the good scales are the ones that kind of come down to that V. They go to like the focus, the middle of the scale. If I see anything like that bad scale, I can't use it. That's a regenerated scale. At some point, this fish met up with some trauma. It lost some scales. Scales do grow back quickly, but because they grow back quickly, they lose that information as like an original scale, and I can't figure out what's going on or get an accurate age. But back at the lab, I'll pick through, get all the good scales, and with a heat press, I will apply 12,000 pounds of pressure, put the scales on the plastic, heat it up for 3 minutes, and leave and get this lovely, lovely scale impression, which I then age all winter. So this is just a blown up version. Scales, like trees, lay down annuli. They're rings. I can count them and come up with an age. This fish is actually 5. Scales aren't the only thing you can age. You can age the otoliths, which are ear stones, the vertebrae, spines, fin rays. It's just, for the sake of collection, scales are the easiest, and it doesn't kill the fish. So why this is important. What you provide are lengths and scales, and I can get ages from these, and this will give us length at age data, which goes into model assessments for each species. And this allows us to monitor the fish stocks, so it tells us if fish are getting shorter or longer over time for a particular age. And this is really important in terms of females, because the larger the female, the more eggs she produces, and the more she'll release and hopefully add to the population. And it also allows us to check the health of the fish stock. So it'll tell us if a particular year class is experiencing higher fishing mortality, and allows biologists and management to hopefully make the proper regulations in order to keep this fishing stock going. Here's some of the data that I collected from the 2015 stuff that Sadcat Anglers provided. The average age for a legal size striped bass is 6 years, and for black sea bass at the time, the legal size was 14 inches, and the average age was 3. For scup, it's between 2 and 3, and for fluke, it's actually 3, despite what this graph says. Females are actually larger at age than males. So when we collect fluke on resource, we'll actually sort them out between males and females, and they do need to be assessed differently. But given this survey, we combine them together because I don't have that information. And then here is just the 2015 map or coast of Massachusetts showing the distribution of the striped bass caught from the anglers. And I don't forget about you guys. So for participating, you get this really sweet hat. You eventually get some nice pins, your own individual angler report every year, and I started doing a raffle. So I think this year I did gift cards to Bass Pro. And that's that. So I have a sign-up sheet. If you'd like, I'll pass it around. Feel free to sign up if you want, if you haven't done so already. And I'll take any questions if you have any.
Can you put the scales in a Ziploc bag or no?
You can, but I provide like the envelopes and stuff. But if you prefer, as long as I get that length, date information, you can put them in whatever you want.
Second question: can you determine the gender of the species based on the scale?
No, I can't. That's why it's hard with the fluke, and that's why it stays the same. So on resource, we're actually out there working, and we get to figure out what's next there. So, no, unfortunately, you cannot.
Does taking the scales from the same area as opposed to maybe different locations, does that compromise the fish health at all?
No. So scales grow back really quickly, and that's why I only ask you to take a few, especially if you're going to release the fish. You could sample ever so slightly outside of the sampling area, but on some species, there are some like black sea bass, because they're in the rocks all the time and stuff. I need that protected area from the fin, or most of the scales are regenerated, and they're not useful.
I just didn't know if, like, if you took a few scales from one really concentrated area, or if it exposed, epidermis or whatever to parasites or.
No, the scales do grow back quickly, and that's also why I asked just for a few.
What's the oldest striped bass you found locally?
So far, off of scales, we can get to like 15 and be comfortable, but on the otolith sections, we've had some that are 25. Yeah, but historically, they've been aged up to 40. I, however, have not seen a 40-year-old striper.
Not yet.
Not yet. Yes.
Wouldn't weight of the fish be important?
We found that sometimes the weight is unreliable, so we don't go with the weight.
I'll send you the weight anyway. I got a
You
great
could, yeah.
visual scale.
There are some people that give the weight and stuff, but Gary, the one that goes through and uses this for his models, he doesn't want the weight or need the weight, so he hasn't asked.
If someone isn't here tonight, how can they sign up for the program?
I have pamphlets up there with my card, so contact me, or
I'm thinking of something I put on the website when I post this video, just.
Well, I could give you this presentation, and I could put up the general instructions and sampling procedures that has all my information on it if you'd
Okay.
like. Or,
Okay,
yeah, just have them contact me, you could,
okay.
yeah, and that should do it. All right, well, thank you guys.
Really, I want to thank you very much for being here.
Oh, no, thank